Dele and good evening from the Karmapa Center 16 in Zion, Illinois. I'm here participating in a very important and sacred Dharma event for the whole week. Is Lama Mark there already? The Chinese translator?
I have not seen him yet, but I will start his translation
I think
as
he's
soon as
there.
he arrives.
Okay, let me just continue then. It is so nice to see you all online again after some time, and I'm extremely happy to have this great opportunity to share my little understanding of the sacred and precious Dharma with all of you, my precious Dharma brothers, sisters, and friends. Well, once again, it's time for me to try my best with my broken English to bring the sacred blessing of the unbroken precious lineage to you, my non-Tibetan speaking Dharma brothers, sisters, friends in general, and particularly for my English speaking Dharma brother, sister, and friend. I have been informed that we will also have simultaneous Chinese translation arranged, especially for my Chinese speaking Dharma brother, sister, and friend, which makes me extremely happy. I hope and I'm pretty sure that my broken English will be translated into unbroken Chinese because the translator, Lama Mark or Lama Chunjing, is an excellent translator. First of all, let us do the group opening chant for tonight's talk. We usually start the group opening chant with the Taupo Calculinate supplication, so we will do the same tonight. We will start our group opening chants with the Taupo Calculinate prayer. When we supplicate to the Gurus, one of the most important and indispensable thoughts that we should have in our mind is an uncontrived devotion. And of course, on top of that, we should definitely try to have as many positive thoughts as possible, such as genuine sense of renunciation, unconditional loving kindness and compassion, and so on. So please make sure your devotion is strong and your mind is free of any negative thought before we start the supplication. Please put your hands together at your heart now in Anjali Mudra and join me in the supplication. Okay, we start the supplication now.
Translation is started.
Good. We don't see the supplication yet on screen. I mean, on my screen. I don't know. Can I just start or?
You should see it. Let me stop it and start it again.
Okay, maybe because I'm using a very old laptop, as old as myself. So because I'm not in my usual place, now I'm in Chicago, in Zion now. Anyway, I'm not going to use any melody for the supplication to save time. And now, yes, I can see it now. Okay, let's do. Dorje Changchen Telo Naro Dam Barba Melan Chijin Gambo Tuzum Sheja Gunjin Karma Ba Cheshi Chungi Gyuban Zinam Teda Sazum Balden Ruba So Sablam Shaya Jalan Ani Nyamen Rungu Dabo Gaya La Sawan Deso Gaya Lama Gyuban Zino Namtara Singya Shenlong Gongji Gangbara Songba Xin Senara Gonglan Shaxin Meba Sendin Deta Sheben Gomshin La Yegur Shenba Mebara Singjel Megu Gomjin Gobara Songba Xin Menga Dergo Shibe Lama Yundu Sowan Deben Gomshin La Jimi Megu Yabara Singjel Yemen Gomji Moshira Songba Gangsha Dobe Ngo Soma De Maju Degara Sheben Gomshin Gomsa Lodan Ravara Singel, Namdong Owo Shukura Sumbash, Jian Mayin, Jian Shavala, Magara, Baran Shaben Kumjian, Korde Me Dobra Singel, Gawa, Gunda Yanda, Lama, Tame Chiga Bala, Longjoji, 사단남 예연대 rabzone dorje shangyen gompanyor doyo. As you all know that the Tagpo's lineage application is completed here. Now let us do some meditation on what we call the excellent beginning of precious bodhicitta. We have something called Dhampasum in Tibetan, which I usually translated into English as three excellences. They are Jorwa Semke Dhamba, the excellent beginning of bodhicitta, Nushi Migme Dhamba, the excellent man practice of non-conceptuality, and Jugmawa Dhamba, the excellent conclusion of dedication. So when we do any practice with these three excellences, then whatever we do will be on the path of Mahayana. That's why it's very important. That's why I always talk about this little bit at the beginning to remind people, make sure that we include these three excellences. And we will chant the verses of refuge, bodhicitta, the four immeasurable thought, and the seven branch prayer as the opening chant for tonight's teaching. Before chanting the verses, let us do a little meditation on bodhicitta. Okay, the meditation starts right now. Okay, now let's chant the verses together. We will chant the verses of refuge and bodhicitta 3 times first. After that, we will continue with the verses of the four immeasurable thought 3 times and the verses of seven branch prayer 1 time. Okay. Sangye chudan sogen shonam la changchoyan bardoyan danen gyabsan dagyen jinsoyen gibe sonam gen dola benjir sangye drubaray sho sangye chudan sogen shonam changchoyan bardoyan danen gyabsan dagyen jinsoyen gibe sonam dola benjir sangye drubaray sho sangye chudan sogen shonam Changyo Bado Dane Gyabsan Shin Dagyen Jinson Gebe Sonam Dola Benjir Sangye Drupara Isho Semjin Tamje Dewa Dan Dewe Yudan Dambara Gyurche Dunga Dan Dunga Ge Yudan Davara Gyurche Dunga Mebe Dawa Tamba Dan Mendavara Gyurche Nere Shadan Yidan Draven Danyam Shambola Nebaran Gyurche Semjin Tamje Dewa Dan Dewe Yudan Dambara Gyurche Dungola Dungolge Yudan Dawar Yujen, Dungola Meben Dawa Tambada Mendawara Yuj, Nerin Shadan Yudan Drabe, Danyam Jambola, Nebaran Yuraji, Semjin, Tamje Dewa Dan Deve Yudan, Dambara Yuj, Dungola Dungolge Yudan Dawara Yuj, Dungola Meben Dawa Tambada Mendawara Yuj, Nerin Shadan Yudan Drabe, Danyam Jambola, Nebaran Yuraji, Chansa Wadan Shujin Shabada. Yara Gojin Sawai Jawa Junsen Dakin Jesaba Tamje Dagi Shangjun Shango. Now let me pay my personal homage to the three Ratna and to my gurus by chanting some verses before I start talking. So my teaching will be embraced by their unsurpassable blessings, and hopefully whatever I say tonight will be beneficial for those who hear it. Buddham gacchami sharanam yavatta bodhi mandradaha dharmam gacchami sharanam bodhisattva ganam tadaha. Namda suram saje saje den tenzen pa me rin ko bez sharab ni de na we chugo sa thujo dunggon dum la sha sa me don da zen pe me la ma ni tibe jeng an da wo jun no yu ka ren cho dung ge long so se ge wi long de jo la sha za lo ni me yin dan pe ma ka ra so tu sum ge we long ge nga ba nam de su me gyang wang kar ma ba o jin thin len dur je sha la do me jun tu je sam mo ko go ne Nigdon dollar, Laban to the war, Dorjan Chang, some one sugar, Ramadan, the Shabland, New Boating, and Ban Pelvation, Davotion, and Ruben Goshambo. Now you want John Davel also some Lama Dawas, some Shablando, Shabran Tajan, and Jay Bo, Jawan, Kajan Haven. Love zones of the attention, she gave and then she gave him a daughter, some gentleman. 就是叫老多说，都见空间撒当呢，心脏或者他们讲，难怪来讲学员当根本小巴多不来说。Okay, well, the topic for my talk tonight is teaching on the preliminary practices of the 7 point of mind training. And first of all, I have to introduce you from where I received this teaching. I received this teaching, Lojong teaching, from Khenpo Rinpoche. So my lineage is from Khenpo Rinpoche on this teaching. Now, I'm going to teach it according to the commentary that was written by Jampu Kondro Lodutai, the Great, known as the Great Path of Awakening. The root text was composed by the great Kadamba master, Geshe Chekawa Ishidorje. And there is only one verse in the root text for my teaching tonight. And it says, the root text says, first, train in the preliminaries. Also, sometimes my pronunciation is not very correct, so you may have hard time to understand. When I teach from KTD, I have a helper beside me who can correct my pronunciation. Today, I have no one here, so my pronunciation could be a little broken. Anyway, I am going to try my best. Okay. Jamgon Kondro presented this verse, the only one verse, under two headings in his commentary. The preliminary practice for the sessions and the preliminary instructions, which means Jamgon Rinpoche said, the Lord has said, what we should do before we start every session as a preliminary practice. That's what we call the preliminary practice for the session. And when we say the preliminary instruction means what we have to learn generally, understand before we practice Lojong in a very effective way. Okay. For the first one, the preliminary practice for the session, Jamgon Kondro says, now, because Jamgon Rinpoche wrote very concise way, not very long. Therefore, I'm going to read all his commentary. Then after I'm done that, then I will explain with my own words based on the teaching that was taught by the Buddha and the Gurus in the past. Okay, now quotation mark. You don't see the quotation mark, right? So I want to do like that, quotation mark. This, whatever I'm going to say now is from Jamgon Kondro. At the beginning of every session, we should visualize our root guru sitting on a lotus flower and moondigs seat on our crown. He or she has a smiling face and magnificent body, and his or her mind is thinking of all beings with non-referential compassion. He or she is the embodiment of all root and lineage gurus. With a yearning devotion, we can recite the lineage supplication if we want. Okay, here I'm going to stop reading the Rinpoche's commentary, and I will just a little bit here. When he said, we can recite the lineage supplication if we want, means if we want to have more chanting at the beginning, then we can do the lineage supplication, which means there is a particular lineage supplication of the gurus of Lojong, and that was composed by Jamgon Kondro himself. And of course, according to the KTD, in every session we do the Dharmachakra lineage prayer. That is also the lineage prayer, but that's not particularly a guru of the lineage guru of the Lojong lineage. Therefore, if we like, then we can do the particular lineage prayer of Lojong that was composed by Jamgon Kondro here. But if we don't do that, nothing is missing. He said, if you like. He said, if you like. Okay. Now I'm going to continue again. He said, especially we should recite the following supplication 100 or 1,000 times at the beginning of every session. And then he says, the recitation is this one. The genuine Guru, the great spiritual friend of all, please grant your blessings so that loving kindness, compassion, and an extraordinary bodhicitta will take birth in my mind stream. So this is what he said. We should start like 100 and 1,000 times before we start. And also, one thing I want to say is, when he says you visualize your guru, and then some teacher says you can also recite that. If you recite that, then it will be we usually recite in Tibetan. Then it will be like Rangi, Chiwar, Peden, Denla, Sabe, Lama, Shal Zumba, Ku Zije Dan Denshi, Tuk Mingme, Injen, Roland, Gongde, Shukba, Sagyu Lama, Kundugi, Ngover, Gyur. We have to say that. Then, if you like to do the lineage prayer, you do the lineage prayer. If not, then the other one. Also, according to the KDD, this supplication, I hope I already told you the meaning, but we recite in Tibetan. We say, Lama yang dagba, yonggi, gewe, xenye, chenpu, dala, xingi, labdo, sol, sam, inje, shangjugi, sem, kepariji, gyula, kevara, zedu, sol. This is what we have to recite like 100 or 1,000 times. And then which means, let me read the translation one more time. It says, the genuine Guru, the great spiritual friend of all, please grant your blessing so that loving kindness, compassion, and an extraordinary bodhicitta will take birth in my mind stream. Okay. After reciting it, now still I'm reading the Jamgon Rinpoche quotation. After reciting it as many times as we can, we then imagine that the Guru descends into our heart through Brahmarandra. Brahmarandra is Sanskrit word, and which in English we usually say the aperture of the Brahma. You know, we say there is a hole from here, and sits in a pavilion of light, our heart, which looks like an open shell of egg facing upwards. Then generate yearning devotion towards him or her, and it is a Guru Yoga which is important at the beginning of every session. Okay, this is what the preliminary for the session. Now the second one, the preliminary instructions. Yunden, can you hear me? Hello, Yunden.
Yes, I was having trouble unmuting.
Okay, am I speaking too fast or is okay?
Sounds loud and clear and comfortable pace for me.
Okay, then good. Because I want to finish as much as possible. I have lots of things to say tonight. So I'm trying to speak a little faster. Okay. Okay, I'm still reading Jamgon Rinpoche's word. Now the second one. For the second one, the preliminary instructions. The difficulty of obtaining the precious human body, death and impermanence, the shortcoming of samsara, and karmic cause and effect. These should be presented thoroughly as they are taught in the progressive stages of the path. If the students are new, they should meditate on them until they become convinced of them. Here is a concise presentation of the basic point if you prefer it. In order to obtain the support for Dharma practice, the precious human body endowed with the perfect 18 qualities of freedoms and riches, we must accumulate the cause, the perfect virtue. Among sentient beings, there are very few who practice genuine virtue. Therefore, it is very difficult for sentient beings to obtain a precious human body endowed with the perfect 18 qualities of freedoms and riches, which is a result of practicing the perfect virtues. If we compare the number of humans to the number of all other beings, such as animals, it is a rare opportunity for us to obtain a human body. So, when we have one now, we should practice genuine Dharma without wasting it. There is no certainty for the length of one's lifespan, and there are so many causes and conditions that can cause death. Therefore, we actually don't have any guarantee that we will not die today. Therefore, we should strive to practice Dharma starting right now, in this very moment. When we die, except for the results of virtues and non-virtues, nothing will follow us no matter what we have. Not food, not wealth, not property, power, or even our own body. Nothing will be helpful. Nothing will be able to provide even the smallest amount of help, not even help as tiny as a piece of hair. Therefore, they are all useless. After death, no matter where we are born in the six realms of samsara, by the power of our karma, there will be only sufferings and no pleasure at all. No pleasure even as tiny as the tip of our hair. It is infallible that happiness and suffering come about as the results of virtuous actions and non-virtuous actions. Therefore, I am not going to do any non-virtuous action, even at the risk of my life, and I will put in great effort to practice virtuous action. Think thoroughly in this way and practice Dharma. That's all what Jamgon Khenpo wrote on this session. Now, now whatever I'm going to say is going to be my own words. Okay, I'm done reading the root text, which was from Cheka Waishi Dorje, and also commentary from Jamgon Khenpo. And now I'm going to elaborate little more until we still have like 1 hour. Okay, so this is all what Jamgon Khenpo wrote on this section. As he said, again, I'm giving a quotation from Jamgon Rinpoche. As Jamgon Khenpo says, these should be presented thoroughly as they are taught in the progressive stages of path. If the students are new, they should meditate on them until they become convinced of them. Now, okay, this is the quotation. As Jamgon Rinpoche said that, now let me explain them in my own words, whatever time is available, based on what the Buddha and the Gurus have taught. Before that, let me have a water. Okay. Well, the preliminary practice is called ngondo in Tibetan, ngondo. There are two syllables, ngon and do. Ngon literally means before, and do literally means go, which together means something that goes before. The reason why it is called so is because ngondo or the preliminary is a practice that we must complete before starting any advanced Buddhist practices. It is an essential foundation practice for all Buddhist tradition in general. Particularly, before beginning any advanced Vajrayana practice, ngondo must be completed and fully internalized. Without this foundation, practicing Vajrayana would be just a joke, okay? J-O-K-E, joke, right? Joke. I don't know pronunciation again, just a joke, okay? It would be like planting a rotten seed from which we will get nothing. We will be only wasting our precious time, energy, and so on. The great masters of the past have said that the preliminary practices are more profound than the actual main practices. Why is that so? It is because without a good foundation of the preliminaries, no house of any actual main practices could be built as stable and strong. Not only that, but it is also indeed very dangerous for us to try to build a tall building of the actual main practices without a proper foundation of the preliminaries, because it might collapse at any time, and we could even get killed. Another good metaphor or example will be at this point, I think, like trying to have a major surgery such as heart operation without being in the right physical condition. Therefore, don't be too thirsty for the higher teachings at the very beginning, and let's make good foundation with the preliminaries first. So we will naturally be ready for the actual main practices. The high teachings such as Mahamudra, Dzogchen, Mahamadhyamika, and so on. We could definitely have transplants of our ordinary hearts into the heart of bodhicitta and great bliss if we had the proper physical condition of the preliminary practices first. Okay, according to the Ocean of Definitive Meaning, a great Mahamudra practice manual by the 9th Gyalwang Karmapa Wangshu Dorje, there are 3 different types of preliminary practices that one must first go through in order to be ready for the actual Mahamudra meditation. The 3 practices are called the common outer preliminaries, the common uncommon inner preliminaries, and the special preliminaries. Here tonight we are mainly going to discuss only the first one, the common outer preliminary practices. The other 2 preliminaries are very strictly related to Vajrayana, and therefore they are usually introduced only after the first one has been thoroughly studied and practiced. Okay, the common outer preliminary practices in Tibetan, the common preliminary practices are called or known as Lotok Namba Hi in Tibetan, Lotok Namba Hin. Lotok Namba Hi, which literally means 4 aspects that turn the mind. Turn, that turn the mind. So these are the basic foundational practices for all Buddhist practitioners, regardless of tradition, and so they are called the common preliminary practices. The main purpose of practicing the common preliminaries is to turn our mind towards the Dharma. Usually, our minds are very busy with the mundane stuff of this life because we think that we are going to live forever. And so, we hardly ever take the time for genuine Dharma practice. Therefore, it is very important to train our mind by meditating on the 4 common outer preliminaries, and it will be definitely help us become less attached to this life as we understand the nature of life being impermanent. We would naturally become more interested in the Dharma as we figure out that the nature of samsara is nothing but full of suffering, for which the Dharma is the only remedy. These common outer preliminary practices are basically 4 different thoughts that help us turn our minds away from samsara, which are meditation on the precious human body, meditation on death and impermanence, meditation on karmic cause and effect, and meditation on the shortcomings of samsara. The first common outer preliminary practice, meditation on the precious human body, helps us realize the preciousness of our existence. The second, meditation on death and impermanence, helps us understand the nature of our existence as being impermanent. The third, meditation on karmic cause and effect, helps us attain confidence in the certainty of cause and effect relationship. And the fourth, meditation on the shortcoming of samsara, help us realize the nature of our life being nothing but full of suffering. That is how they help us turn our minds towards Dharma. The common preliminary practices are the first stones that must be laid for the strong foundation of all Buddhist practices. Because the preliminary practices will help you take an unshakable birth of genuine renunciation, compassion, and devotion in your mind stream. Therefore, without a good foundation of the common outer preliminaries, no practice of any Buddhist path could be stable and successful. And so it is indispensable for us to go through the common outer four preliminary practices very thoroughly if we want to practice the genuine Dharma. Let me explain each of them in little more details. But to be honest, I don't know how much we can get them done tonight because we don't have too much time. Well, when we say precious human body, first of all, we need to know what precious refers to here. There is a big difference between a precious human body and just an ordinary human body. We are particularly talking about the precious one, which is one of the four our main subject here. When we say precious, I think precious. I have no one here to ask my pronunciation. Okay, I think it's precious. Okay.
Correct.
When we say precious, right? Okay. When we say precious, what does that really mean here? It means a human body with the 18 qualities that we must possess in order to be able to practice the genuine Dharma. Once a human body possesses these qualities, then it can be called a precious human body. An ordinary human body can become a precious human body right away if these qualities are present in that particular being. If we lack, L-A-C-K, lack, okay. If we lack these qualities, then we can never ever have a precious human body with any other material qualities such as jewels, money, and so on. Even if we are the richest person in the world with all the material wealth, we could still be one of the poorest person on the earth as far as the Dharma is concerned if we lack these qualities. Therefore, we should always check ourselves to see if we really possess these qualities or not. If we do possess them, then we should rejoice in them, appreciate them, and use them for the right meaning of practicing Dharma for the benefit of all sentient beings. If we don't possess them, then we should try to attain them in any and every possible method. Somehow, I guess, one would have a precious human body mostly as a result of one's own virtuous deeds of our past lives. Because most of these qualities are not something that we can really have with effort in this life. Rather, they depend on where and when you are born, which means mostly by our previous karma. But we can have some of them by our effort in this life. So let us try to have a precious human body with every possible means. What are the 18 qualities? Now we have to know what are the 18 qualities, right? I don't want to go in very detail. We have not enough time, but I just want to mention you only the name. The 18 qualities are called Dalwa Ge and Jorwa Chu in Tibetan. Dalwa Ge in Jorwa Chu. Dalwa Ge literally means 8 leisures. Leisure, freedom, right? Leisures, having time. Leisure, and Jorwa Chu literally means 10 riches There are many different translations in English, but I thought these are the good translation. Leisures or freedom and the riches. So Joju literally means 10 riches, and that is what the 18 qualities are. The 8 leisures and the 10 riches together which become 18. Okay, now I have to tell you what are they then. The 8 leisures basically refer to freedom from the 8 different states where beings are always busy with the experiences of their own karmic result and never have time for practicing Dharma. So, okay, now let me say one by one. The 8 states are being born in the hell realm. So we have this quality because we are human, not a hell realm, right? Not the hell one. We are human. Okay. And then being born in the hungry ghost realm. And then we are not hungry ghosts, we are human. And being born in the animal realms, and we are human. So we are free from these 3 states for sure. Being born in barbarian, right? It's a barbarian place. You understand? It's barbarian, right? Pronunciation okay?
Barbarian.
Okay, barbarian places. Okay, so we are not born there. So we have this also. Being born in the long-lived Deva realm. So we are not one of the gods realm. We are human. So we are free from them. Even if you are a human being, but holding a wrong view. Okay, this is something that we can correct if we don't have this one. By learning the correct thing, then we should have the correct view, you know. Okay, so okay, again here, when we say correct or wrong view, means not believing, temporarily not believing in the law of karma, that's wrong view, and ultimately not believing in the view of emptiness, that is wrong view. So as long as even you don't have experience or realization of emptiness, if you trust what Buddha has taught, all phenomena in the ultimate point of view is nothing but emptiness. If you believe that way, then you have not you have right view, not wrong view. And also, if you believe in the next life and this life and previous life, karma, cause and effect, then also you have the right view. So this is something that we can correct if we don't have totally right one. Okay, and okay, the 7th one, being born when there is no Buddha means this is something that I have to do with the Abhidharma, you know. It says there are some time where Buddha never came, but in our time, this is called the fortunate Aeon. So it says 1002 Buddha will appear here. So far, we have only 4 of them, and Shakyamuni is the 4th. So Shakyamuni, Shakyamuni came and he taught, and then the teachings are still available. So we have that quality also, you know, like that. And even you are human being hearing or speech impaired. Usually, according to Tibetan word, I just say being mute or stupid. But some my friends said this is not very good in English, so I'm using this word, but I'm not sure you understand. Being hearing or speech impaired, which means you cannot hear clearly, you cannot speak, you cannot think. If you even if you are a human being, if you are like that, then you cannot really practice Dharma very well. Okay. So these are the 8 states with no freedom for Dharma practice. So being born in any of this realm, or even if you are born in the human realm, but during a time when there is no Buddha, or being born in barbarian places where Dharma, the teaching of Buddha, is never heard, or being born as a speech and hearing impaired person, or if you are holding a wrong view, then you wouldn't have the opportunity to practice the Dharma at all. Okay, now fortunately we are totally free from all of these states, so we have great chance to practice the Dharma. And then, but only being free from these states is not really good enough for us to be able to practice the genuine Dharma and for our human existence to be called as precious human body. Then what more do we need? We need to have the 10 riches now. Out of the 18 qualities, only 8 qualities is done. Now I'm talking about the 10 more qualities, which are basically referred to 10 endowments, 5 of which are called the endowment of self, meaning individual endowments, and the other 5 are called the endowments of others, meaning circumstantial endowment. Okay, the 5 endowments of self are being born as a human being, being born in the central, means place where Dharma is available, having all your sense faculties perfectly well functioning, means you have a good hearing, you have good eye, you have good tongue, you have good nose, you have good body, healthy. I should say healthy ear, healthy nose, so forth. And having the wish to positive action, having the wish to do positive action, and having faith in the teaching of the Buddha. That is 5. And the 5 endowment of others are the Buddha has come, which means Shakya Buddha Muni came. He has taught. It means there are so many Buddha, he says, they become Buddha and they never taught like that. Even our Shakyamuni Buddha, he did not teach for like few weeks after he became enlightened, because he thought whatever the realization he has was too profound for the ordinary people to understand. Therefore, he said, even I teach, people might not understand. That's why he did not teach. And after a while, at the request of the Brahma and Indra, the 2 kings of the Deva realm, and then Buddha taught. So he has taught. That's what he says. And his teaching still exists, means the Buddha Dharma is still available. Having taken up the Dharma as our practice and having been accepted by a spiritual friend. So these are what we call the 18 qualities. These are the 10 riches, and together with the 8 leisures become 18 qualities, which a human body must possess to be a precious one. Here, I'm just giving you the numbers of these 18 qualities for your reference. If you can read the practice manuals, you can read the practice manual if you are interested in knowing more details about them. The Buddha Shakyamuni taught this topic by 3 means to show us how difficult it is to get a precious human body. He said, Buddha Shakyamuni said, it is very difficult to get a precious human body in terms of its causes. He taught it in terms of its numbers compared to other beings to show how rare it is, and he gave numbers of examples to illustrate how it is simply rarely possible at all for us to obtain a precious human body. First, in terms of its causes, Buddha said that we never ever get a precious human body just by chance or coincidence. It is the result of the virtuous actions that we have accumulated for many eons in our past life. So, never expect to get it again while you are doing all the worldly things that are against the sacred Dharma. But if you could lead a life that is in accordance with the sacred Dharma, with whatever you do in your daily activities, then it is possible for you to obtain it again and again until you don't need it anymore, meaning you become a Buddha. Once you are enlightened, once you attain the complete, perfect, and unsurpassable state of Buddhahood, you don't need a precious human body anymore. Just as when we are already on the other shore of a river, we don't need the boat or bridge anymore. In the same way. Okay. Second, in terms of its number, Buddha said that the number of the other beings are as many as there are particles of the dust in the whole world, and the number of human beings are just as few as the number of dust particles you can pile on your fingernail. And of course, the precious human body are even more rare. At this point, I think Even though we cannot see the rest of the beings of the other realm, we ourselves can partially compare the human realm to some animals' realm that are visible to our eyes and find out how much difference there is as far as numbers are concerned. Then we would have some idea about how rare human beings are in general. And we would come to understand that to obtain a precious human body in particular is hardly possible at all. You understand? Okay, right? I'm saying clear?
Very clear.
Okay, good. I don't know why I get myself doubt in my English. If you say clear, then other people also should understand then. Okay, let me continue then. We still have time. Third, in terms of example, Buddha's famous metaphor for this teaching is that of the great ocean and the blind turtle. Turtle, right? Turtle? Turtle, yes, turtle. That lived in its depths. In the sutras, Buddha said that if this whole universe were to become a great ocean and there lived a blind turtle at the bottom of it, and there was a single yoke, right?
Yoke.
Okay, yoke with a hole in it, which was constantly being blown by the wind on the surface of the ocean. The blind turtle would come up to the surface of the ocean once every 100 years, and the yoke would be blown by the wind constantly from east to west, west to north, north to south, and so it would be continuously moving. Now we can imagine how difficult it would be for the blind turtle to get his head through the hole of that yoke under these circumstances. And it would hardly be possible at all. Somehow, Buddha said that would be possible, but it will be even more difficult for us to obtain a precious human body than for the turtle to get its head through the hole of the yoke. There are more examples of this teaching found in the sutras. Now, of course, we have no time to go through all of them, so that's the example. Okay, now the most important thing now. What is the essence of whole teaching here? Is it about counting the 18 qualities and so on? No. The essential point of this teaching is to figure out how precious our existence is, to know how difficult it is to get this opportunity and how meaningful it could be if we use it in the right way. We should rejoice and appreciate what we have now. Just intellectually understanding the preciousness of our life is not good enough. We must reflect on it again and again until we become convinced by it. Once we are convinced by it, and we really believe in what we have just been taught in this section, then how could we waste this great opportunity without doing something meaningful for oneself and others? It will be very difficult for us to waste even a minute of life. As Shantideva said, now quotation mark, I'm quoting from Shantideva. He said, if having found this opportunity of a human body with the 18 qualities and I don't practice what is good, then nothing could be more mistaken, nothing could be more stupid. So we don't want to be stupid, right? Okay. So if even after knowing how precious our existence is and what a great opportunity we have to help oneself and others, we don't use it for something beneficial, then we would be the most stupid person in the world. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but that's what I think. Okay, and that's how it helps us turn our minds toward the sacred Dharma by meditating on the precious human body. So, don't just leave it after reading about it in the books once or twice and having a dry theoretical understanding of it. Put it into practice for your daily life, and it will definitely help you be more interested in the sacred Dharma, the only remedy for the suffering of samsara. If we waste our life just in the worldly distraction without practicing the sacred Dharma, then it will be something like returning empty handed from an island of jewels. What a great loss! Therefore, why don't we try to take as many jewels as we can, since we are already on this island where we can get the jewels of precious Dharma completely free? Don't blow your great chance. Let's wake up from the deep sleep of samsara and start collecting the jewel of the precious Dharma so we can save enough money for the expenses of our journey to nirvana together with our big family of all sentient beings. I put a little bit in a poetic way. So sometimes when poetries are translated from different language to different language, it doesn't make too much sense. So I I thought thoroughly in Tibetan, wrote in English. So I'm not sure how much it makes sense to you. Anyway, now I'm going to stop about the first the precious human body. Now, since we have little time now, let me talk little bit for the second one, which is the meditation on the impermanence and death. Okay, the second common outer preliminary practice is meditation on impermanence and death. After going through the first common preliminary practice, now we come to understand how precious our life is and how effective it could be if we use it in the right way. But that is not enough for us to be able to fully turn our minds toward the Dharma. We have to ask ourselves these questions again and again. What? Are we going to have this precious human body with us forever? Will it last forever? Is it something permanent? And so on. The answer would be, unfortunately, no, no. Definitely, our life is not something that lasts forever. Indeed, it has been changing every moment right from the very birth of our life, and it doesn't remain the same for even a minute, even a moment. Many detailed explanations of this practice are available in the different practice manuals in general. Somehow, the main purpose of all of them is to realize how fragile, you understand fragile or fragile?
And spell it.
The easy to broken, fragile, right? Frigile.
Fragile.
Fragile, yes, okay. Okay, okay, okay. Anyway, the main purpose of all of them is to realize how fragile our life is and how easy it is for us to come to the end of our life. Even though we know and accept that we are eventually going to die one day, we usually have the wrong concept, thinking that we won't die, we will not die for a while. That is how we cling to our life as permanent, and we keep thinking, let me first finish this one thing, then I will practice the Dharma. Once we have done one thing, another one will come up again, which seems to be so important and needs to be done right away at any cost. That is how most people in the world die, right in the middle of doing something. In order for us to counteract these kinds of wrong conception about our life, the second common preliminary practice was taught. The fact is that worldly activities are never finished as long as we carry them on. Once we leave them, then everything at that very moment is done. How could we say for sure we are not going to die for a while? Indeed, we have no guarantee at all that we will not die even today if we really think carefully. The Buddha said, we don't know for sure if tomorrow comes first or the next life comes first. Therefore, we better do something beneficial for the next life rather than doing something for tomorrow. I think what Buddha meant here when he said this, therefore, we better do something beneficial for the next life rather than doing something for tomorrow, is that it is very certain that we will definitely have a next life, but it is not very certain whether we will have a tomorrow or not, because we could die at any time, tonight or before tomorrow. Therefore, it is better to do something beneficial for the next time rather than always being a slave. Slave, slave, right? Then slave, only to
Slave.
slave. Slave is okay?
Yes.
Okay. If we do something good for the next life, the well-being of this life would naturally be there all the time. Okay. When we talk about the impermanence, then two different types of impermanence are taught in the Buddhist philosophies, which are called the subtle impermanence of dharmata or suchness. Dharmata is Sanskrit word, so in English it says suchness, and the coarse impermanence of continuity. The coarse impermanence of continuity is what we are going to mainly discuss in this topic today. The subtle impermanence dharmata refers to the nature of all phenomena that is composite, right? You have to composite?
Yes. That's correct.
Okay, composite. Okay. And I think that's what he meant when the Buddha said, everything that is composite is impermanent. What it basically means is that all the composite and conditioned phenomena keep changing momentarily, and so nothing ever remains the same for even a moment. For example, our five skandhas have always been constantly changing by nature from the very moment of our birth. So skandha is, again, I think, because since I don't know the audience personally, if you are very new at the Buddhism, then you might not know the Sanskrit word. Skandha in English usually it says aggregates. So we have five aggregates. Anyway, if not, then how could we get older? Which day is the day when we get older? Where, word, W-E-R-E, okay, word, right? Word, okay. Were we born just as we are now? That would be impossible, right? We were little, tiny babies when we were born. From our birth up until now, we can find that one day when we could say, I got older on that day. Therefore, we can understand that our existences have been constantly changing from the very moment of our birth if we analyze it well enough. If you are interested in more details, more reasoning, and examples of this teaching are found in the sutras and treatises. Somehow, practically speaking, the coarse impermanence of continuity is more effective for beginners, I guess, for practitioners. The coarse impermanence of continuity is easier for us to understand in some way, and so it is more helpful for beginners to meditate on. It basically means that everything comes to its end and stops its continuous functioning of the action in the same way, such as the death of a person. The time between the birth and the death of a person is one continuity, and there are thousands of moments in that reality. But we mistakenly, right? Wrongly. Mistakenly is okay, Yondan?
Yes.
Okay. But we mistakenly or wrongly cling to it as one entity. Entity, right? Entity.
Yes.
Okay. This particular person is called dead only when its continuous action stops functioning. For example, if you went swimming, in a river last year and the river carried away your underwear. It's interesting example. Okay, or maybe you can say maybe underwear is better because you don't use any other clothes in swimming, Or maybe swimming custom, let's say, or whatever. Underwear is okay. Okay, let me say, for example, if you went swimming, if you went to swim in a river last year and the river carried away your underwear, somehow when you happen to be at the same river with some friends again sometime later, you might tell your friends that this is the river which carried away my underwear last year. Because you cling to the continuity of the river as one, and so you think it is the same river. In reality, the water which carried away your underwear was gone long ago along with your underwear. It's not about that, right? Okay. In the same way, we are totally confused about the reality of our life continuously running, and we cling to its continuity as one entity. And so we say such and such person dies when it comes to the end of its continuity. These two types of impermanence are very much interrelated. Interrelated. The subtle nature of the coarse impermanence of continuity is a subtle impermanence of dharmata or suchness. Practically speaking, meditating on the death and the impermanence nature of every situation in our life is the main focus on this particular subject, the second common outer preliminary practice. Because we will be more interested in Dharma practice if we realize every situation of our life is in the nature of impermanence and death can approach at us anytime without any warning. Warning. So, according to the Kadampa tradition, how many? Okay, we still have about more than 20 minutes. Let me say more. According to the Kadampa tradition, there are 5 basic ways of training our mind with meditation on the death and impermanence of life, which are thinking that nothing lasts forever, thinking of the many deaths of others, thinking again and again of the many causes and conditions of death, thinking about what happens at the time of the death, and thinking about what happens after death. So these are the 5 different ways of practicing meditation on death and impermanence. Okay, let me explain a little more each one of them. The first way, thinking that nothing lasts forever, means everything that is composite or conditioned does not remain the same, even for a second. They keep changing every moment, and that is the very nature of all composite phenomena. When we can take ourselves as example, first we were just infants, then we become children, then youths, and finally we are now old age. Each year, each month, each day, each hour, each minute, each second, we keep changing by nature. It is the same with the rest of the world outside, changing every moment. One day we will definitely die, and that day could be today as well as any other day. We have absolutely no guarantee that we will have tomorrow, for sure. So, every situation of our life is in the nature of constant change, and that is what nothing lasts means. There is really nothing we should be attached to this in this life if we were to analyze it carefully. Because everything's in the nature of constant change, and very good friend could become a very dangerous enemy instantly with no much reason, and our own wealth and riches could become the very cause of our death. Therefore, if we think in this way, how could we be attached to them? In the same way, it is very futile to get angry at enemies. How could we know they will be our enemies forever? It is very possible that they could become our closest friend in the future. The second way, thinking of the many deaths of others, means that we should keep thinking of the deaths of our friends, relatives, enemies, and just neutral people that we know who have already passed away, and we should use this thought as a reminder for our own death. We have to tell ourselves again and again that we too could die at any minute, any moment. Usually, when we hear about someone's death, we say, "Oh, poor guy." Then, of course, as a Tibetan Buddhist practitioner, we say, "Om Mani Padme Hum," or some other mantras. But we never really think that we could face the same situation anytime. Try to remember how many people that you know who have died. I'm sure you will find a lot of them. Did they all die after becoming old? I don't think so. Therefore, even though we are young now, we have no guarantee that we will live until old age and die only after that. Death can attack us anytime, no matter whether we are young or old. In short, thinking of the many deaths of others means that we have to remind ourselves of death constantly, so we will be frightened with the thoughts of dying, and we will become more diligent in our Dharma practice. Some people might find that constantly thinking about death makes life more miserable and sadder. Sadder, right? Sadder? You understand sadder?
Sadder or more sad.
Oh, more sad. Okay. 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 Some people might find that constantly thinking about death makes life more miserable and more sad. But we don't need to worry about that, because if we can realize how miserable our life is, then indeed we can begin to realize the truth of suffering, which Buddha Shakyamuni taught for the first time. When he was teaching the Four Noble Truths during the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, the Buddha said that the truth of suffering is something that we need to understand and realize rather than deny. The third way, thinking again and again of the many causes of death, means thinking about those things that could cause us to die, such as food poisoning and so forth. There are countless circumstances in the world that could immediately put us to death. If we really examine them, we could easily find out how fragile, right? Fragile, right? You know, fragile,
Fragile.
fragile our life actually is. So, how can we consider it as something permanent and get attached to it? Meditating in this way will help us realize the impermanent nature of our lives. If we train ourselves with this method again and again, it will definitely help us get less attached to this life and the worldly pleasures. Being attached to the worldly pleasure and this life is the most powerful demonic, right? Demonic or demonic?
Demonic.
Demonic, okay. Demonic obstacle for us that prevents us from being a successful Dharma practitioner. That is the reason why the four common outer preliminary practices are so important and essential for us, for our practice. all the way to final destination, Buddhahood, as they primarily serve to uproot the attachment to this life and samsaric pleasures. If we have a strong foundation of four common preliminary practices, then there is no way that this horrible demonic obstacle of being attached to this life can attack us, and we will be completely free of obstacles all along the path, all along the path of our spiritual journey. Therefore, it is extremely important for us to build a strong foundation of common outer preliminaries first. And we should never jump into the actual practice without it. The fourth way, thinking about what happens at the time of death, means that we have to think about the great suffering of death itself during the process of dying, and we should, starting from this very moment, look for a remedy to overcome it. That indeed is one of the four main sufferings of the human realm taught by Buddha Shakyamuni. According to the Buddhist teaching, it is said that unless we have practiced Dharma well while we were alive, we will have unbearably terrible experiences at the time of death when our body and mind are separating. But for those who have practiced the sacred Dharma really well during their lifetime and achieved mastery over birth and death, such as Milarepa, that is no different than traveling from one place to another. As it is said, that is not a death, it is a little enlightenment for a yogi. Therefore, if we have practiced really well and have achieved a certain level of realization in this life, then we don't need to worry at all about that. Otherwise, we better prepare a valid travel document now, which we can apply while we are still alive for our journey to the other side of the world. It will be too late to think about practicing Dharma when we are already at our deathbed. The fifth way, thinking about what happens after death, means that we need to know that no friends, no relatives, no wealth, no power, nothing good of the world will follow us after death. Even if we were the richest person in the world, there is simply no way we can take even a penny. Penny, right? Penny. P-E-N-N-Y, penny.
Correct.
Okay, penny. Yeah, even a penny with us after death. We will be traveling alone. We will be traveling alone through those terrible bardos, the intermediate states and experiences. The only thing that will follow us after death are the karmic results that we ourselves accumulated while we were alive. It is very possible for us that death may come even today. In brief, thinking about what happens after death means that for ordinary people, death will usually be followed by the terrifying appearances of the bardo. And that is what we have to think about. If we think about all this, what is the purpose of being attached to this life and samsaric pleasures? We will at least have some idea of how futile it is to make oneself a slave to an unreal dream-like life. If you really analyze it, there is not much difference between the experiences of yesterday and the last night's dream from today's point of view. We will naturally be more and more free from the kleshas, the conflicted emotions such as attachment, anger, jealousy, sadness, depression, and so on, if we are well trained with the meditation on the impermanence of life. Because we will come to realize that all subject of our kleshas, the conflicted emotions are actually not real, and they are just a dream-like experience. Wealth and poverty are impermanent. Happiness and suffering are not something that lasts forever. Friends and enemies could change any moment into opposite. So, how can we be so attached to our relatives and friends who could change into our enemies at any moment? And how could we be so angry with the enemies who could change into our friends? What is the purpose of being jealous of others, others' happiness and prosperity, which are impermanent? We will know that it is completely futile to be sad and depressed with a little problem in life when we realize that good fortune and de- deprivation, right? You understand? It's called deprivation?
Deprivation, yes.
Okay, deprivation never lasts forever, and they are just if this is always hard to pronounce. Ephemeral for temporary. How to say ephemeral, right?
Ephemeral.
Ephemeral. Okay, ephemeral. Okay. The meditation on death and impermanence is very necessary for our everyday practice until we reach the deathless state of immortality. Milarepa said, I went to mountains being afraid of death. I meditate again and again on the uncertainty time of death, and I took a strong hold of the primordial deathless nature. Now I am completely free from the fear of dying. That's what Milarepa said. Okay, now let me move. I'm going to stop the second one. We still have little time because we have four of them. We have just done two of them. Okay, the third common outer preliminary practice is meditation on karma, cause and effect. Since I have already taught last time, no more than 2 months ago, and also we don't have too much time tonight. I'm not going to talk about it in detail. Anyway, the purpose of meditation on karma, cause and effect, is to gain certainty on the infallible nature of karma, cause and effect. Why is the third common preliminary practice, meditation on karmic cause and effect, taught? It is taught to show us the right things to do in our life. Because even after going through the first two preliminary practices, by now we are aware of how precious our existence is, and we also understand that we should use our precious human body for something good as soon as possible, as it is impermanent, and we may lose it at any time. But we don't know for sure yet what are really good things to do and what are not. So, the third common preliminary practice, the teaching on karma, tells us the things that we should and we should not do in order to make the best use of our precious existence. We would never dare to engage in any negative deeds if we have a good understanding of karma and practice it in our daily life. So the general idea of cause and effect is that there is nothing that has no cause to be in existence, and the cause never fails to produce its effect unmistakably. Okay, I'm going to stop about the second one here, third one, because I thought last time my topic was karma and Buddhist ethic. Okay, let me move the fourth one. We still have few time, okay, few minutes we still have. The fourth common, the fourth common preliminary practice is meditation on shortcoming of samsara. This is taught to introduce us to us our own existence, being full of suffering and how to overcome it. Why does suffering need to be introduced to us as the nature of our existence? Because we are usually confused about the nature of our own life, and this confusion prevents us from following the right way of true happiness, which means we will never be free from some suffering. That's why it is necessary to introduce the reality of our life to us. Therefore, the meditation on the shortcoming of samsara basically means to contemplate or reflect on the suffering that sentient beings, including ourselves, are unbearably going through in the sixth realm of samsara. The place where we live is called samsara, and it is nothing but full of suffering. Samsara is Sanskrit word which is translated as korwa in Tibetan. Korwa literally means going around and around by itself with no other doer, right? Doer, right?
Do
Doer, doer. Okay.
cure.
Yeah. Doer. Okay. Buddhism is a non-theistic religion, and so it doesn't assert any creator of world. Therefore, samsara itself is a product of our own action, and what makes us wander in samsara are also our own action. That's why our world is called korva. We will be going round and round in samsara without any end as long as we keep accumulating action. Sometimes in the higher realms as a result of virtuous action, and other times in the lower realms as a result of the non-virtuous action. There are 6 different kinds of realms in samsara. I think it's too much now because we don't have too much time. Okay, only a few minutes now. Okay, I think Yonjanla, I'm going to make short now. So anyway, samsara or Sanskrit word or korva in Tibetan word is sometimes divided in 3. We say that 3. In Sanskrit and Tibetan we have different words, but in English you just have realm, 3 realm or 6 realm like that. But no matter how you divide it, we are talking the same thing. When we say like 3 realm, then we say desire realm, and then form realm and formless realm. Or in Sanskrit we say kama dhatu, rupa dhatu, and arupa dhatu. And when we divide into 6 realm, then we say that's the more usual way. The hell realm, hungry ghost realm, animal realms, human realms, asura, and deva. So these are what we call the samsara. And then when we say the shortcoming of samsara means we are meditating on the nature of this existence, and then according to Buddhism, is nothing but full of suffering. Therefore, and then if we don't practice dharma, and there's no way we can get freedom from there, So, and then no one want to suffer. Therefore, if you really want to get ultimate freedom from the suffering, then we have to practice dharma well. So maybe I will stop here because we need to do the dedication prayer. I wish we have longer time. I have so many things to say, but time is, and also I have been doing whole day puja today here, and tomorrow also I have whole day puja. So I need to get enough sleep also, and I am sure you also need to get enough sleep. So I hope we will have more time in the future to go more details about these things. So Yundala, I think I would like to stop here and we do the dedication, long life prayer of His Holiness, and then our usual dedication prayer. Okay. Hoy jagoy ni je ran soy karma ba jagoy tele je don karma jagoy don soy wang gor karma ba orgen tele shabde orgen don tele shabde sonam de ye tamje zigba ni tamne nye ben dana yam pamje ye ga ya na je bala ya to ba sebe solen ro nyo do sho jamba. Okay. Jambaya bawa chedra chenpa da kondo sampo tenyan deshin. Teta kungin jesu nalo yawa teta tamche rabdo ngo sangye koson yebe selab. Chunye mingye tenpe shelab. Gende mejen tenpe shelab. Cheta ngo molan drupara sho. Dushele kya kya ventele ba karma ba de be himbo. Choda kun kya kya jen kyu mensh. Tabo ba be da shi sho. Before we say good night, we still have 4 minutes. Let me say a little more about this, the essence part of this teaching, okay? The four thought that turn away our mind, especially like the suffering of shortcoming of samsara. If we carefully think about the life of Buddha Shakyamuni, actually his life is teaching us there's no permanent happiness in samsara because he was a prince and then he has everything he could wish for. He had a good parents, he has a good beautiful wife, everything, but still he gave all of them up and in search of the true happiness. So if we think that way, then we will have understanding also that. And the only reason for us not to be, I mean, I don't know for you, but for me, okay, I shouldn't say for us, for me. For you, maybe you could be a very diligent practitioner, I don't know. But for me, the only reason for me not to be a really diligent practitioner is I'm not fully convinced with this idea of four thought that turn away our mind. If you are fully convinced, then we don't really want to waste even 1 minute in life, but you want to practice Dharma. So we have to think that way. And there is a very well-known verse from Shantideva. He says, it's not okay to relax, saying that I'm not going to die today. And then he said, it's 100% sure that there will be a time where you are no more alive. So he says you should never say that I'm going to relax today because I'm sure I'm not going to die today. So if you think that advice from Shantideva, then we don't feel good to waste any time. I know precious moment, but we will become a very diligent practitioner in Dharma. So if we become diligent of Dharma, then we will have the result of that. Okay, now that's all. Good night.
Thank you very much, Khenpo. Thank you, Lama Mark, for your translation. And most importantly, thank you to all of you who joined us tonight. We look forward to seeing you next week when we will continue this subject.
So I always share one thing that I think is very important is always try to have a true sense of renunciation from the samsara, which doesn't mean you have to run away from your family. Mentally, you have to decrease your attachment to this life and the samsaric pleasure, and try to have a genuine sense of compassion, love and compassion for sentient beings, and uncontrived devotion to your guru. If you have these basic three qualities in you, then whatever practice you do will be on right path. Okay, good night. Thank you.